The sky bled crimson as the jet screamed past, a streak of silver tearing through the dusk. I stood frozen on the tarmac, heart pounding, as Captain Elena Voss climbed out of the cockpit, her silhouette sharp against the fading light. She was everything they said she was: untouchable, unbreakable. The Air Force Academy's living legend. My name is Mia Chan, a 26-year-old rookie flight researcher, barely a month into my post at Edwards Air Force Base in California. I'd spent my life buried in data, equations, and simulations, but nothing prepared me for her. Elena Voss, 32, the pilot who'd flown missions that rewrote the rulebook, whose name was whispered with reverence in every hangar. Her green eyes locked onto mine as she strode toward me, and I swear the world tilted. "You're the new brainiac, huh?" Her voice was low, teasing, with a smirk that made my knees weak. She peeled off her flight gloves, revealing calloused hands that told stories of battles I'd only read about in reports. I clutched my tablet like a shield, stammering something about aerodynamic stress tests. She laughed, a sound that cut through the roar of engines, and I was already lost. Edwards was a pressure cooker of ambition and ego, a desert sprawl where dreams of flight collided with the harsh reality of physics. I was here to analyze data for the X-17, a next-gen fighter jet prototype that could outmaneuver anything in the sky if it didn't tear itself apart first. My job was to make sure it didn't. Elena's job was to push it to its limits, to dance with death in the cockpit and come back grinning. That first week, I watched her from the control room, my screens filled with numbers, thrust vectors, G-forces, thermal readings. But my eyes kept drifting to her. The way she moved in the simulator, precise yet wild, like she was part of the machine. The way her jaw tightened when engineers questioned her instincts. The way she lingered after briefings, her gaze catching mine just long enough to make my pulse race. "Mia, right?" she said one evening, catching me alone in the lab. I nearly dropped my coffee. "You're the one crunching numbers to keep my ass from crashing." I blushed, fumbling for words. "I'm trying to keep you safe." Her smirk softened. "Safe's not my style, rookie. But I like that you care." That was the first crack in my armor. I'd always known I was different, drawn to women in a way my small-town upbringing never allowed me to voice. But Elena? She was a storm, and I was a paper boat, helpless in her wake. The X-17 project was cursed with problems. The prototype's engines overheated, its wings shuddered under high G turns, and the brass was breathing down our necks for results. I spent nights poring over data, my eyes burning from screens, while Elena flew test after test, defying gravity and sanity. We were opposites. She lived for the thrill, I lived for the why, but somehow we clicked. One night, after a near-disastrous test flight where the X-17's left engine flamed out mid-spin, Elena stormed into the lab. "Your numbers are wrong, Mia," she snapped, tossing her helmet onto my desk. "That jet should have held." I bristled, exhaustion fueling my courage. "My numbers are solid. You pushed it too hard again." She stepped closer, her breath warm against my face. "You think you know what it's like up there? You don't. You're safe behind your screens, playing God with my life." I held her gaze, heart hammering. "I'm not playing God. I'm trying to keep you alive." For a moment, neither of us moved. Then her eyes softened and she whispered, "You're good at that, aren't you? Caring." The air between us crackled, and I felt the pull, the danger, the want. She was the Academy's untouchable hero, and I was just a rookie, but in that moment we were equals. Our late-night arguments became routine, a dance of frustration and fascination. She'd challenge my data. I'd challenge her recklessness. But there were quieter moments too, her bringing me coffee at 2 a.m., me slipping her notes on flight patterns. Once, she caught my hand as I passed her a report, her thumb brushing my wrist. It was electric and I didn't pull away. The base was a small world, and rumors spread like wildfire. I overheard whispers in the mess hall about Elena's past, her defiance of don't ask, don't tell before it was repealed, how she'd fought to be herself in a world that demanded conformity. I admired her courage, but it terrified me. I'd spent years hiding who I was, burying my feelings under layers of logic. Elena was the opposite. She burned bright, unapologetic, and it drew me in like a moth to flame. One evening, as we walked across the tarmac under a starlit sky, she stopped and turned to me. "Why do you do it, Mia? Stay up all night, obsessing over my flights?" I swallowed, my throat dry. "Because I don't want to lose you." Her eyes searched mine, and for the first time I saw vulnerability in her. "You don't even know me," she said softly. "I want to," I whispered. She stepped closer, her hand grazing mine. "Careful, rookie. I'm not easy to keep." The X-17's next test was make or break. The brass wanted results, and Elena was determined to deliver. I ran simulation after simulation, tweaking variables, but the data screamed danger. The jet wasn't ready, but Elena wouldn't hear it. "I can handle it," she said, her voice steel. "Trust me." I didn't. Not this time. The night before the test, I found her in the hangar, checking the jet herself. "Elena, please," I begged. "The numbers don't lie. You could die." She turned, her face half-shadowed. "You think I don't know the risks? I've been cheating death since I was 18. This is who I am." "And what about me?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. "What happens to me if you don't come back?" Her expression faltered, and for a moment I thought she'd walk away. Instead, she closed the distance between us, her hand cupping my cheek. "You're too good for this place, Mia," she murmured. "Too good for me." Before I could respond, she kissed me. It was fierce, desperate, like she was pouring everything she couldn't say into that single moment. I kissed her back, my heart breaking and soaring all at once. When we pulled apart, she pressed her forehead to mine. "I'll come back," she promised. "For you." But as she walked away, I couldn't shake the fear that I just kissed her goodbye. The control room was a cage of tension, screens flickering with data as Elena's jet roared into the sky. My hands trembled on the keyboard, numbers blurring as her voice crackled through the comms. "X-17 airborne. Let's see what this beast can do." I wanted to scream at her to turn back, but all I could do was watch. The test pushed the jet to its limits, Mach 2, then 2.5, the airframe groaning under stress. My screens flashed warnings: thermal spikes, structural strain. "Elena, ease off," I said into the headset, my voice tight. "The left wing's at critical." "Copy that, rookie," she replied, but I heard the grin in her voice. She was in her element, dancing with danger while I drowned in dread. The other engineers exchanged glances, their faces grim. They knew her reputation, but they also knew the jet's flaws. I'd spent weeks warning them, but Elena's confidence was infectious, and the brass wanted results. Then it happened. A screech tore through the comms, followed by a blaring alarm. "Engine 2's down," Elena said, her tone calm but clipped. "Switching to backup systems." My heart stopped. The backup systems were untested, a last-ditch fix we'd barely modeled. I pulled up the telemetry, my fingers flying across the keyboard. The data was a nightmare: vibrations spiking, fuel pressure dropping. "Elena, you need to eject," I said, my voice breaking. "Not yet," she snapped. "I can bring her down." "Damn it, Elena, you'll crash." I was shouting now, tears stinging my eyes. The control room went silent, all eyes on me. I didn't care. All I could see was her, alone in that cockpit, fighting a machine that was betraying her. The next 10 minutes were the longest of my life. Elena wrestled the jet through a descent, her voice steady as she relayed readings. I fed her adjustments, recalculating trajectories in real time, my mind racing to keep her alive. The runway loomed closer on the monitors, but the jet was unstable, wobbling as she fought for control. When the wheels finally touched down, the room erupted in cheers, but I couldn't breathe until I saw her climb out unharmed. She strode across the tarmac, helmet under her arm, and I ran to meet her, protocol be damned. "You're insane," I said, my voice shaking. She grinned, but her eyes were tired. "Told you I'd come back." I wanted to hug her, to kiss her again, but the crowd of engineers and officers swarmed us. Later, in the debrief, the brass called it a success, proof the X-17 could survive extreme conditions. But I saw the truth in the data. We'd come within seconds of disaster. And Elena knew it too. That night, I found her on the roof of the barracks, staring at the stars. The desert air was cool, and she looked smaller without her flight suit, just a woman in a worn leather jacket. I sat beside her, our shoulders brushing. "You scared me today," I said quietly. She didn't look at me. "It's my job, Mia. I fly. I fight. I don't back down." "But you don't have to do it alone," I said. "I'm here. I'm part of this." She turned then, her green eyes searching mine. "You're more than that," she said softly. You're different. My heart thudded. Different how? She hesitated, then reached for my hand, her fingers intertwining with mine. You make me want to come back. Not just from a flight. From everything. I squeezed her hand, my throat tight. Then let me in, Elena. Let me help you. She smiled, a rare unguarded smile that made my chest ache. You already are. The weeks that followed were a blur of tests and tension. The X-17 project was under scrutiny, and Elena and I were at its heart. We worked side by side, her in the sky, me on the ground, our lives tethered by data and something deeper. But the base wasn't kind to secrets. Whispers followed use about late-night meetings, lingering glances, the way I lit up when she walked into a room. I didn't care, but Elena did. They'll use it against us, she said one night in my quarters, pacing like a caged animal. The military might be open now, but you know how it works. One wrong move and they'll ground me. Or worse, they'll transfer you. I stood, grabbing her hands to stop her. Let them talk. I'm not hiding who I am anymore. Not for them. Not for anyone. Her eyes softened, but there was fear there too. You don't know what it's like, Mia. I fought for years to be seen as more than this. She gestured vaguely, but I knew she meant her identity, her truth. Then we'll fight together, I said. I'm not going anywhere. She pulled me close, her lips finding mine in a kiss that was softer this time, full of promises neither of us could fully make. But it was enough. For now. The next test was the biggest yet, a simulated combat run to prove the X-17's agility. Elena was to face off against another pilot in a mock dogfight, pushing the jet to its breaking point. My data showed the jet could handle it, but only just. I begged her to be careful, but she just winked. I've got you watching my six, don't I? The flight was flawless at first. Elena outmaneuvered her opponent, pulling moves that left the control room speechless. But then the telemetry spiked again, hydraulic failure in the right wing. Elena, abort, I said, my voice steady despite the panic clawing at me. I can finish this, she said, her tone defiant. You can't. I shouted. The wing's going to fail. Eject now. Silence. Then her voice quiet but firm. I trust you, Mia. Tell me what to do. My hand shook as I ran the numbers, guiding her through a desperate maneuver to stabilize the jet. It was a long shot, but it was all we had. As the jet descended, wobbling but intact, I realized something. She wasn't just trusting my data. She was trusting me. The jet landed hard, skidding across the runway with sparks flying. I held my breath until Elena's voice came through the comms. I'm down. I'm okay. Relief flooded me, but it was short-lived. The debrief was brutal. The brass tore into Uzmi for the faulty data models, Elena for ignoring the abort order. They didn't care that we'd saved the jet. They wanted perfection and we'd fallen short. Back in the lab, I buried myself in the telemetry, trying to find where I'd gone wrong. Elena found me there at midnight, her face drawn. Stop beating yourself up, she said, leaning against my desk. We're alive. That's what matters. But it's my job to keep you safe, I said, my voice cracking. I failed you. She knelt beside me, her hand on my cheek. You didn't fail. You saved me. Again. Her touch grounded me, but the weight of the day lingered. We were walking a tightrope, not just with the X-17 but with each other. Every touch, every glance was a risk in a place that thrived on control. But I couldn't stop. I didn't want to. The next morning, Colonel Hargrove, the project lead, called us into his office. His eyes were cold as he slid a report across his desk. The X-17's behind schedule. The Pentagon's losing patience. One more screw-up and heads will roll. Yours included, Voss. Elena's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Understood, sir. His gaze shifted to me. And you, Dr. Chun. Your models need to be flawless. No more excuses. I swallowed hard. Yes, sir. As we left, Elena grabbed my arm, pulling me into an empty hallway. He's bluffing, she said. They need me in that cockpit. And they need you to make it work. But what if they don't? I asked. What if they split us up? Her eyes darkened. They can try. But I'm not letting you go. Her words lit a fire in me, but they also scared me. We were defying more than just physics now, we were defying a system that didn't care about us, about who we were or what we felt. The next test was rescheduled for a week later, giving us time to recalibrate. I threw myself into the work, rewriting algorithms, triple-checking every variable. Elena was relentless too, running simulators until her hands shook from fatigue. But outside the lab, we stole moments, a brush of hands in the hangar, a shared coffee under the stars. Each one felt like a rebellion, a claim on something the world wanted to deny us. One night, she took me to the edge of the base, where the desert stretched endless and free. We lay on a blanket, the sky above us a canvas of stars. When I was a kid, she said, her voice soft, I'd look up and imagine flying so high I'd touch them. I turned to her, my heart full. And now, she said, her eyes meeting mine, I think I'd rather be down here. With you. I kissed her then, slow and deep, the desert swallowing our secrets. For the first time I felt like I belonged not to the base, not to the project, but to her. But the world had other plans. The morning of the test, a rumor hit the base like a shockwave. Someone had reported us. An anonymous tip about inappropriate conduct between a pilot and a researcher. Colonel Hargrove called us in again, his face a mask of disdain. I don't care about your personal lives, he said. But this project is bigger than you. Keep it professional or you're both out. Elena's fists clenched, but she stayed silent. I wanted to scream, to tell him we weren't just data points or flight logs, but I bit my tongue. We needed this project. We needed each other. The test went ahead, but the air was thick with tension. Elena flew with a precision that was almost mechanical, no trace of her usual flair. My data was perfect, the jet stable, but it felt hollow. We were performing for them, not for us. Afterward, in the hangar, she pulled me aside. I'm done hiding, she said, her voice low and fierce. I've spent my life fighting to be who I am. I'm not going back. I nodded, tears in my eyes. Then we do this together. All of it. The next day, we were called to a closed-door meeting with the brass. The X-17 was being fast-tracked for a final demo in front of Pentagon officials. It was our last chance to prove the jet and ourselves. But the rumors hadn't died. Whispers followed us everywhere, and I saw the toll it took on Elena. She was a fighter, but even legends have their limits. That night, she showed up at my quarters, her eyes red. I can't lose this, Mia, she said. Flying's all I've ever had. Until you. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tight. You won't lose me, I said. No matter what. But as we stood there, the weight of the world pressing down, I knew the fight was far from over. The demo was in 3 days, and everything, our careers, our love, our future, was on the line. The days before the demo were a blur of preparation and paranoia. I reworked every model, cross-referencing data until my vision blurred. Elena pushed herself harder, running drills until she could barely stand. We barely spoke about the rumors, but they hung over us like a storm cloud. Every glance felt stolen, every touch a risk. The night before the demo, I found her in the simulator, staring at the blank screen. You should be sleeping, I said, leaning against the doorframe. So should you, she shot back, but there was no heat in it. She looked exhausted, her usual fire dimmed. I sat beside her, our knees touching. What if we fail? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. What if they take everything? I took her hand, my thumb tracing circles on her palm. They can't take us, I said. Not if we don't let them. She looked at me, her eyes bright with something fierce and fragile. I love you, Mia, she said, the words raw and unpolished. I didn't mean to, but I do. My breath caught. I'd known it, felt it, but hearing it was like breaking the sound barrier. I love you too, I said and kissed her, pouring everything into it, fear, hope, defiance. The demo day dawned clear and brutal, the desert sun blazing over Edwards. The runway was lined with Pentagon suits, their faces unreadable. Elena suited up, her movements precise but tense. I stood in the control room, my heart in my throat as she climbed into the X-17. The flight was a masterpiece. Elena pushed the jet through maneuvers that left the crowd gasping, tight loops, vertical climbs, a mock dogfight that showcased every upgrade we'd fought for. My data held, the jet responding perfectly. For 20 minutes we were untouchable. Then the comms crackled. Mia, we've got a problem, Elena said, her voice tight. Control surfaces are sluggish. I'm losing response. My screens lit up with errors, hydraulic pressure dropping, Actuators failing. Elena, level off, I said, my voice steady despite the panic. Reduce speed now. I'm trying, she said, strain evident. It's not responding. The control room went silent, all eyes on me. I ran diagnostics, my mind racing. The actuators were overheating, a flaw we'd missed in the rush. I fed Elena manual overrides, talking her through each step. You've got this, I said, willing her to believe it. You're the best there is. She laughed, a shaky sound. Flattery won't fix this jet, rookie. But she followed my instructions, her hands steady in the cockpit. The jet wobbled, but she brought it down, skidding to a stop just off the runway. The crowd erupted, but I was already running, my heart pounding as I reached the jet. Elena climbed out, her face pale but grinning. Told you I'd come back, she said, pulling me into a hug before anyone could stop us. The brass called it a success, but the whispers didn't stop. That night, Colonel Hargrove summoned us again. The Pentagon's impressed, he said, his tone grudging. But there's still the matter of your conduct. Elena stiffened, but I spoke first. With all due respect, sir, our personal lives don't affect our work. The X-17 flew today because of us. Both of us. Hargrove's eyes narrowed, but he didn't argue. Get back to work, he said finally. And keep it clean. Outside, Elena grabbed my hand, her grip fierce. You're getting bold, rookie, she said, a spark of her old fire returning. Learned from the best. I shot back and she laughed, the sound bright against the desert night. But the victory was fleeting. The next morning, I found a transfer order on my desk effective immediately, to a research lab in Virginia. Elena was to stay at Edwards, grounded pending a review. It was punishment, plain and simple, for daring to be ourselves. I found her in the hangar, staring at the X-17. They can't do this, I said, my voice shaking. We'll fight it. She turned, her eyes blazing. I've been fighting my whole life, Mia. For my place in the cockpit, for my right to exist. I'm tired. Then let me fight, I said. For us. She pulled me close, her lips brushing my forehead. You're braver than you know, she whispered. But this isn't over. We spent the night drafting appeals, gathering support from colleagues who'd seen our work. It was a long shot, but we had nothing to lose. The next day, we marched into Hargrove's office, our evidence in hand. The X-17 is our project, Elena said, her voice steady. You need us, both of us, to make it work. I laid out the data, every test, every save, every moment we'd proven ourselves. You can transfer me, I said, but you'll lose the best chance at perfecting this jet. Hargrove leaned back, his expression unreadable. You're playing a dangerous game, he said. But I'll consider it. As we left, Elena squeezed my hand. Whatever happens, she said, we're in this together. Hargrove's decision came down 2 days later. The transfer was paused, pending a final review. It wasn't a win, but it was time to prove we were indispensable. Elena and I threw ourselves into the X-17, refining every system, anticipating every flaw. We worked in sync, her instincts guiding my calculations, my data grounding her daring. But the clock was ticking, and the weight of the review loomed over us. One evening, as we pored over schematics in the lab, Elena leaned back, her eyes distant. If they split us up, she said, promise me you'll keep going. Keep being brilliant. I shook my head, my throat tight. Don't talk like that. We're not losing this. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I've lost things before, Mia. But you're the one thing I can't. I reached for her, our fingers intertwining. Then we fight, I said. For the jet. For us. For everything. The final review was set for a public demonstration. A chance to showcase the X-17 to the Pentagon and secure its future and ours. The night before, Elena took me to the desert again, our spot under the stars. Whatever happens tomorrow, she said, I need you to know something. You've made me better. Braver. Whole. Tears stung my eyes as I kissed her, the desert wind wrapping around us. You've always been whole, I said. You just let me see it. We held each other until dawn, our fears and hopes tangled in the silence. When the sun rose, we were ready not just for the demo, but for whatever came next. The demonstration was flawless. Elena flew like she was born in the sky, the X-17 responding to her every command. My data was perfect, every system green. The Pentagon officials stood, applauding as she landed, her grin visible even from the control room. I ran to meet her, protocol forgotten, and we embraced on the tarmac, the world fading around us. Hargrove approached, his face unreadable. The X-17's approved, he said. And your transfer's off the table, Dr. Chun. You've both proven your worth. Relief crashed over me, but Elena's grip tightened. And my status? She asked, her voice sharp. You're cleared to fly, Hargrove said. But watch your step. As he walked away, Elena turned to me, her eyes bright. We did it, she whispered. We're not done, I said, smiling. Not by a long shot. Months later, the X-17 was in production, and Elena and I were still at Edwards, a team in every sense. The rumors hadn't stopped, but they'd lost their power. We'd earned our place not just as a pilot and a researcher, but as partners, unapologetic and unafraid. One evening we stood on the runway, watching a new jet take flight. Elena slipped her hand into mine, her thumb tracing familiar patterns. You ever think about the future? She asked. I leaned against her, the hum of engines filling the air. All the time, I said. And it looks a lot like this. She laughed, pulling me close. Good. Because I'm not going anywhere. And as the jet soared into the sunset, I knew she meant it. We'd fought for our place in the sky, and we'd won not just the project but each other. In a world that tried to tear us apart, we'd built something unbreakable. Together we were unstoppable. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.